Lila Nishmas Rabbeinu Yitzchak ben Rabbeinu Shloime Ari Kadosh Luria mazgu bira בגלל שזה תשעת הימים, אז אומרים לי בירה מקטע, in Hebrew and English, yeah? I don't know Hebrew also, okay. My English is not the best. I studied in Cheder, so we learned more English. We didn't know so much English. Okay. Mibira amikta leigra rama. The neshama comes from igra rama. The bira amikta, from the highest of highest to the lowest of lowest, the lowest world. But bira, when you say bira, we remind ourselves of where we really are. The bira amikta. L'chaim, we should get out of the bira amikta thing. Now that we're saying l'chaim, it already connects the Arizal to Chassidim. we showed it in fact. The fact that you say l'chaim, how it started. We'll try to elaborate a little bit. Hey Ov, today is the 5th day of Ov. There are 4 days of Menachem Ov before Hey, and 4 days after Hey, including Tisha B'Av. We have Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, and we have after Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes. So the Arizal is smack in the middle of the 9 days. Avelus, mourner's period, usually when it's a personal mourning thing, it goes weaker and weaker. In other words, the day of the burial is stronger, and then the 3 days and 7 days, 30 days, 11 months, a year, always gets, the halacha goes weaker. We see that in the mourners for the Beis HaMikdash, it gets stronger and stronger, stricter and stricter, from the 3 weeks period, the Rosh Chodesh, 9 days. Tisha B'Av is the strictest. So the Arizal, who's smack in the middle here, we call the Yortzeit of the Arizal Hilula. Everybody calls it a Hilula. What does Hilula mean? Hilula is a demonstration that it represents the highest level of simcha that there is, that we could experience. Here, Hilula is like Hay Alma Be. Hilula is a wedding, performance of a wedding of a person marrying off his only son. The biggest simcha that there is Hilula. And the passing of the tzaddikim was called Histalkus. Histalkus doesn't mean Histalkus gone away, Histalek. It means Histalkus elevated, gone up, higher. And from the period of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai till Arizal, we don't find so much that this category of Hilula is used. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the category of Hilula is very famous because the Ariz said on himself that his day, he wants the day to be turned into the most joyous day, even though it was smack in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer, which is also limiting. It's also a period of mourners period of the 24,000 students, and nevertheless, Lag BaOmer turned into a very joyous day. It's considered like Matan Torah of Pnimius HaTorah. Lag BaOmer is considered Hilula. Everybody's dancing and parading. There's all these parades that they make for the children, and bonfiring, and schools are all free, and the teachers take their children out to the fields. This is what's done in Hilula. But this idea of a Hilula was only by Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. But being that we know, and when we learn Chumash, we know that the histalkus of tzaddikim, the tzaddikim that are histalic from this world, is the greatest kapora for the world, for the generation. It's referred to like korban chatos. It's referred to like paraduma, like the paraduma, which atones for the most lowest level of tumah. In other words, the tmei mess, where you need to be sprinkled Afer paraduma on the 3rd day and the 7th day, the histalkus of tzaddikim can do away with all these great averas that there is, that tremendous low levels that there is. So that's why the histalkus of tzaddikim in a way, is the biggest simcha. It's called Hilula. And we see it's demonstrated on the Stalkos of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. But this idea wasn't found. First of all, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the Zohar was hidden for many hundreds of years. And it wasn't found by great tzaddikim after his passing away. Even in his generation, with tzaddikim, Rabbi Akiva, it wasn't found so much, the idea of Hilula. He commanded his students to do that, so that's found. Until the situation that the Arizal, coming here to Tzfat, he was the one that pushed his students and people to go to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai to celebrate Lag BaOmer. He brought his son there and he made the cutting of his hair and made the payas for his son by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And from his day on, the idea of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai became actually a hilula, a simcha. So we can understand when a tzaddik says something about another tzaddik, he really paskins on himself in a certain way. In other words, he was speaking about Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and he turned Lag BaOmer, that we celebrate Lag BaOmer, when the Kikar Abu and they're taking the Sefer Torah from here. The whole celebration, who was the one that really started this? The Arizal. He was the one that really sent all the Talmidim, and from his generation on, it was stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So if the Arizal said something like this, so the Arizal also paskined it on himself. So just like Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is smacking a mourner's period of Sfiras Omer, the Arizal himself is also in a tremendous period that even the halacha tells us, the Gemara says, Misha said that Mishenichas Av mematim besimcha, because Nichas Av represents the Churban, and we can't get away from the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash day in, day out. We can't, our life is not complete, our life is not besimcha. We can't make, we always constantly remember it. By weddings, by any occasion, even by tremendous simchas, there's always this idea of remembering the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. So, there is still something here, which in a certain way, only a Yid that has an neshama can really tackle something like this. It's two opposites in one time. On one hand, it's a istalkos, we call it istalkos, it's a Yortzeit, and from the other hand, it's a hilula, it's a simcha. Why we're sitting here, why people are going over there lighting candles, and even though we are limited, but it's a istalkos of a big tzaddik. Arizal is a hilula in a certain way. So it's demanded from us a certain level which is connected to the Arizal. The Arizal, even though he was the one that taught and guided his students through the tremendous idea of spirituality, and to the extent that for certain averas which we could think is a simple kind of avera, he demanded them to fast many fasts. A whole series of fasts, that tikkunim for certain averas that he made. We're talking about tens of fasts for different things that he demanded. People that came to him for tikkun, those that came from the second generation of the Moranos, and also from his students. So he demanded afflictions, such as the idea of fasting, which does away, which is instead of yisurim, of all tsars and all problems that people go through. And in the same time, the greatest level of doing a mitzvah, b'simcha, was found by the Arizal. To the extent that Chaim Vital quoted from the Arizal, that the reason that he was able to reach such high levels is because of his avodah of b'simcha. The Arizal, takes a pasuk, which is, when simply means, when it deals with the teichacha, the Torah tells us, because you didn't serve Hashem b'simcha b'tuv levav, which means, as Rashi explains, you didn't serve Hashem when you had the opportunity to serve Hashem, when you had berov kol, the simcha tu berov kol, when Hashem gave you everything, you forgot Hashem. That's why it says in continuation, and all the curses that continue later. How does the Ariz explain this pasuk? Tachas asher lo yavadetos Hashem elakecha besimcha v'tu berov. Avadeto could be you did serve Hashem. Tachas asher lo yavadeto, but you didn't serve Hashem besimcha v'tu berov. There was a lacking of simcha. It wasn't done with a full fulfillment. It wasn't done from the neshama. It was done only kal achar yad, just forced the possible. So therefore, this is enough to continue of the possible. You lose out on the whole thing because there's a lack of simcha. The Ariz was very strong for this Indian of simcha. Now we know that by Chassidim, by Rebbes, we find this kind of idea also, that from this derived that 200 years later, the status of the Ariz was 450 years ago, and Baal Shem Tov was 120, 130 years later, and his Talmidim, we're talking about the Talmid Magid was like 200 years, and we see this idea only by Chassidim, that a Yortzeit was a Yortzeit. What's a Yortzeit? Fasting. In Mishnah, so you have to make a siyum if you don't want to fast. You used to fast for the Yortzeit of the father of the mother. Why do we celebrate every year Shabbos HaGodol? There's no other Yom Tov which is celebrated on Shabbos. It should have been on the 10th day of Nisan. That's what this miracle of Makkah Mitzrayim B'Chayreim took place on the 10th day of Nisan. So just like the 15th day of Nisan is always the 15th day of Nisan when we get out of Egypt, Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim, Pesach, just like Rosh Hashanah is always the first day of Tishrei, it should have been that the 10th day of Nisan is the celebration of Makkah Mitzrayim B'Chayreim. Why is it a Shabbos HaGodol? It doesn't matter if it comes out on the 9th or the 10th or the 11th or the 12th. It's a Shabbos HaGodol. The Shabbos before Pesach. Because 40 years later, the passing of Miriam and Neviah took place on the 10th day of Nisan. So they didn't want to put the 10th day of Nisan as a celebration day because she passed away as a Yortzeit. So we see that for many generations, the idea of Yortzeit wasn't going together with a simcha, with a celebration. It was going together with fasting and mishnayos, lighting candles, mourning period. After the Ariz revealed what the idea of the Stalkus of Tzaddikim is, and plugged into the idea of his Stalkus, and whoever is connected to the Tzaddikim are also elevated, and after this turned into what's called a Hilula, years later, Chassidim plugged into this idea, and they stress more the point of Simcha, to bring l'chaim. We have the expression Tikkun. What's Tikkun? Tikkun was always known. You fast. You Tikkunim, tshuva. Yet, I see, everybody knows when you bring a l'chaim for a Yortzeit, you put on battle, Eshtelta Tikkun. Tikkun for the neshama, which is have you the expression Tikkun for that? It's called a Tikkun. They say even to the extent that Hirschel Zitit Shoiver, who was in the time of the 2 generations after the Baal Shem Tov, and he one time he was a big mekubal with Kabalah Marzel, and he taught Kabalah. He was one of those Talmidim of Chassidus that demanded to learn not only that he should know, but that students should also learn Kabalah. And one time he forgot his mother's Yortzeit. Whatever the reason was, and he reminded himself already, I guess a day later, that's what they say, his mother came to his dream, and his mother told him that the fact that you didn't learn Mishnayos from me, the fact that you didn't say Kaddish in Dam, I forgive you. The fact that you didn't put a tikkun, say L'chai, I don't forgive you. In other words, the fact that he could say the mourner's side of it, she forgave him, but the simcha side of it, the fact that he didn't bring the l'chaim, she said, that's what they say the story, that she didn't want to forgive him. So we see that the Chassidim turned this inyan to express the simcha point of it, and the whole hilulas of the simcha. Really, as we said before, it's demanded from a Jew two opposites in one time. We sometimes see it, not exactly in the same minute. We see, for example, Yom Kippur, we're fasting and praying and really connected. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu with Echad Lashon. As soon as we hear the blast of the shofar, Lashon Haba B'Yerushalayim, with Yom Tov, and everybody's dancing, and we turn right away from one thing to other thing. We have to understand that constantly a person is in a constant, what's called Ratzov V'Shov. When we are tshuva, we're running away from bad, we're running away from klippus, we're running away from memtes shari tuma, we're running away from Mitzrayim. You're running away from bad because you're afraid that maybe if you don't run away, it'll catch up with you. In other words, you want to get away from where you want to go. It's like somebody is freed from jail. So he's running. A step that you run further away, you leave the bed behind you, but the same step, it also brings you a step closer to your destination, to the Geula, to the freedom. So the same step, you can concentrate either on the fact of the morning, the idea of affliction and the idea of sadness and tshuva in such a way, which is a kapara for all the sins and bad doing. But the same step also takes you another step towards the destination, to the Geula, to the biggest simcha that there is. That what could be the biggest simcha that there is? That when a king, his prince, is released from prison, it comes after being captured, and he was in captivity, and he was released, and he comes home to his father. It's the biggest simcha that there is. So we are now in a situation of tshuva that we're in captivity. The neshama comes down here and goes through whatever we go through. And when we do tshuva, we go back to our source, to Hashem. It's the biggest simcha that there is. Biggest simcha that there is. So we have to stress into this simcha. And it's only a question of what a person really stresses. Because the truth is that it's a constant thing, to the extent that in the Zohar brings it as a possibility that chedvat kia b'liboy mesrit redo, v'pchiyat kia b'liboy mesrit redo. The same person could somebody be in a situation that he is sameach chedva in his heart on this side, and he's crying on the other side of his heart. He's crying because of the tshuva tatoy, the tshuva that he needs to get out of what he is. So he has both things constantly in a whole time. And the Arizal stressed the inyonim of simcha. The Chassidim took that point, and with this they elaborated. And the same thing that the Arizal, because he elaborated and explained the whole inyonim of fasting and tikkunim, so the Balei Musar took that point also to extreme. But the truth is that they both work together, hand in hand. Both will go hand in hand. That's the way it should be. As it says that the simcha, this tachas shel avarta Hashem lekecha b'simcha v'tuv levav, the simcha, when a person is b'simcha, he's opening to himself and he's opening above all the sharim, because the kemaim aponim kein lev ha'adam al'adam, the way you show the face in the mirror or the water, that's the way that you see. The same thing, kein lev ha'adam al'adam elyon, the way we show up ourselves to above, that's what we will be mamshich from above to us. The stress of the Arizal was basically pnimius. That's why it's called pnimius HaTorah, the inner aspect of everything. The Arizal, the Torah that he taught, that he revealed, was given to Bnei Yisrael on Har Sinai. It's not something which was invented here in Tzfat. It's called Kabalah. Kabalah means that it's received. The Kubal, Kabalah, it's handed down. But there were periods that the Kabalah, this being that it's called Seidat Hashem, secret, it's called Chachma Nistora, the hidden aspect of the Torah. And it's a secret aspect of the Torah. So secret is said a mouth to somebody's ears who hears it secretly, understands it's hidden. What does that mean? It's there from the whole time, but what was stressed in all the generations was stressed the revealed level too generally, and the hidden level was from those individuals who were able to comprehend this. Just like Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, who compiled the Mishnah, did something that was revelation. It wasn't accepted till his days. He made a revolution because Torah Sheba'al Peh was not allowed to be written. You have to memorize it by heart. You can write for yourself a few notes. But Torah Sheba'al Peh was supposed to be done Baal Peh, to memorize it, and to give it over. That's what they learned all the generations. Rabbi Yehuda Nossi saw that Golus is taking the Yidden to different corners of the world, and he was afraid that the Torah would be lost. So he went and compiled together the Mishnah, Shisha Siddur Mishnah. And he wrote it. He compiled the Mishnah from before. Then it was Tosefta and Sifri, Sifra, some was from before Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, from afterwards. And then he saved it in such a way that because of him, the Torah Sheba'al Peh was saved. But it was prohibited till his days. The same thing is with the secrets of the Torah. The secrets of the Torah was considered, there was Pshat, Remesh, Drush, Sod. Sod, Hashem, L'Reyav. When a person really wanted to go into and understand Sod, he had to know all the aspects of the Torah before. Until the Arizal, it was prohibited. The first time in history, the Arizal quoted, he said, Mutar o mitzvah legalois zois hachochma. It's permitted, and not only permitted, it's a mitzvah to reveal these secrets of the Torah. And the first time in history, like a yeshiva was formed in this city of Tzfat. It was formed in such a way that the people could recognize them, could point to them, could see. Maybe those simple people didn't understand what they were teaching. But it's, you can sometimes don't understand the Shir Gemara also of a big Talmid Chacham. But they were able to point to them and they were able to see, they were able to recognize them. And that's why in Tzfat, the revelation of Torah Sasod revealed here in Arizal, we see from the times of the Arizal that many people awaken to Kiyum Torah mitzvahs, to do the mitzvahs and to learn Torah, not so much from the simple level of the Torah, from the way it's taught on a simple level to children till you understand the secrets of the Torah. We see it from the time of the Arizal works all the way around. That when you open up a person and you tell them the higher levels of the Torah, the way the Pnimius is above, and you show what you're really doing with the Kamshik of the mitzvah, this turns a person on to be able to actually come to the mitzvah when he understands that a simple thing that he thinks is simple, is putting on tefillin, doing a mitzvah, what it does above in the higher worlds. And we see that from the Daim Arizal, the performance of mitzvahs and the learning of the Torah sometimes were awakened by people, especially those that needed the tikkunim, by revealing them to the inner aspect of the Torah before even they understood the other levels. The Arizal taught and expressed and that when a person does a mitzvah down here, let's say even a korban mincha, a small fraction of a mincha of soilus, or he brings it off to the Beis Hamikdash, or he explained that by this mitzvah that you're doing here, you're elevating all what was brought to bring this, all the plowing and the sowing and the harvesting and all the tons of grains that is needed to this small amount of grain which is born to the Beis Hamikdash. He explained what this does above, and he explained what the Moshe. We think it's a small measurement, but being it's in this world down here. And this world down here is the bottom of everything. It's like comparing the sun up in the sky. It travels thousands of miles. The shadow down here moves a tefach, a fist. When it moves a little bit, down here, just a cup measurement, a little bit measurement from here to here, the shadow is down here very little, but above in the Shamayim, it's thousands of miles. The sun moves. So the Arizal explained that when we do a mitzvah here, we don't understand, we can't comprehend what it does above, and all the levels of oilamos above. So therefore, he gave us such a value, such a weight to doing the Kiyum mitzvahs that when we don't understand the importance of this, we have the highest and the simcha and what we accomplish much more greater. And that's why, together with the fact that the Arizal plugged into the most deepest things, Primis HaTorah, and highest of highest world, and explained the whole thing of Tzimtzum from above down here, together with the highest levels of the Torah, that everybody was bottled because of the Arizal. He stressed the simple kiyum of mitzvahs that has to be actually. He explained the idea of taking the Dalet Minim and sitting in the sukkah and putting on tefillin. Every mitzvah that we do, he explains we think that it's simple, but he explained that it's not simple. It's not just, okay, so I'll be mahader in the mitzvah, I won't be mahader in the mitzvah. He explained how much weight this carries in all the worlds. So he gave a different approach to the thing. That's why we have to be careful not to call Kabalah mysticism. It is a mistake. Mysticism is a goyish approach to it. Mysticism of a different philosophy. Kabalah was given to on Har Sinai together with the complete Torah. The Mashiach will come to be Torah Chadasha, Meiti Tzeitzah, will understand the levels of the Torah that we can't comprehend today. We'll see how it's in higher worlds, not limited to our small capacity that we could take here. But the Torah was given once on Har Sinai, the 6th day of Sivan, and that was the complete Torah. Even Mashetalmid Vosik Osik L'Chadesh, Hakol Nital Moshe Messina. When the Talmud Vosik will be Mechadesh, everything is given to Torah above Messina. So therefore, the idea of mysticism doesn't really apply, because the mystics, they hid from the people, and they made believe that they know, and other people don't know, and they did it in such a way that people looked at that, like mystics. In Torah, everything is supposed to be revealed. A person is not even a kind of, when a Talmud Chacham has a student, and that student is more successful than he is, it's the greatest simcha for the Talmud Chacham, for the teacher. So he doesn't want to hide anything from him. There's no such thing as hiding something. There's certain times the Torah was revealed, but it wasn't hidden. If you really wanted it, you were able to find it. It wasn't that it was taken away. Therefore, we have to understand one thing. From the Kabalah of the Arizal, we see that Lahavdil, Goyim also plug into this because they take it in different ways. We see that there's Goyim that come here. And not only that, Lahavdil Yidden, we have the whole institute of Kabbalah and different things that we see that it takes them away from actually doing the mitzvahs, because they think that they're into the premius of the mitzvahs, and they're explaining the kabbalas, and the different imaginations of different things, and they're in kabbalas and different things, and that's why it takes them away from actually doing the mitzvah, because they think that there's not the lack of importance of doing of the mitzvah, actually the mitzvah. And this is not what the Arizal told. The Arizal taught us the great level of the mitzvahs ma'aseh is down here. And therefore, generations later, the Chassidim, the Rabbis, the big Rabbis, came to this, and Baal Shem Tov said that it's possible that a neshama comes down here 70, 80 years to do a mitzvah. And to do a mitzvah to have a sister for somebody else. And they said from the name of Reb Zusha that a person could do a mitzvah here. Reb Zusha, the brother of Rabbi Melech Lizensk, that he was very big in Simcha mitzvah, that it's possible to do a mitzvah down here and with great joy to dance 70 years to do one mitzvah. Out of the joy of one mitzvah, what a mitzvah is valued. And this is what Chassidim plugged in to the teaching of the Arizal. So therefore we have to strengthen ourselves in the avodas Hashem to do the mitzvahs, accurately. We don't understand, but it's a measure. We know that if it's done this way, it's correct. If it's done that way, it's incorrect. And everything is according to Midah and Mishkal, that it is. And on the other hand, we have to do it with great simcha, because we have to understand that these mitzvahs above are a tremendous treasure that it's being accumulated, a tremendous treasure. That's it. Okay, so we can say l'chaim, and the Ariz al Schus Yogan Oleinu We say every day, every Shabbos, Zmiras, even though we don't have much of his writings, but his teachings from all his students, he's considered the lion of Kabalah, and the lion, and his Talmidim were called Gurei Hari, right? So we should, and the lion, when we're dealing with Aryeh, reminds us of the Beis Hamikdash, because the month of Av is considered Aryeh. In a Beis Hamikdash, it's called Ariel, and just like it was Nichrab through the Aryeh, Yavoy Aryeh, which also refers to Mashiach, Gur Aryeh Yehuda, goes to David HaMelech, and Mashiach, and Dafka in the month of Av, we should be Zeicha, just like the Ariz told us, that the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was on Tisha B'Av, but the birth of Mashiach was also on Tisha B'Av. So we have to plug into the idea of the birth of Mashiach in Mitzvah Hashem, and we should be Zeicha, Sheyibona Beis Hamikdash B'Meir Yomeinu.
Amen. Thank you so much.